Jake had spent 3 years wondering why his construction business felt like it was running through waist-deep mud. Did a lot of the same things other people did. He blamed the labor market, the economy, the subs, customers, his lack of grit that his old man used to talk about. But a few minutes ago, he found a smoking gun at the bottom of a stack of invoices, a signature that changed everything for him. Now, he's sitting in his office waiting for someone that he's entrusted his entire life, ready to end a 30-year legacy. He's fired some people before, but never somebody like this. He had no choice. He was about to have the toughest conversation of his life. He knew that in a few minutes, he'd have to look a longtime friend and mentor in the eye and say, "Save the story, you're fired." Hey, you're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com, where we're all about systematizing your construction business to maximize freedom, impact, and wealth. My name is Todd Dawalt, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and grow their team. This episode is a little different. Listen to the story about Jake and see if it sounds familiar, and then I've got a few questions for you to answer at the end. All right, so we're back to Jake. Jake is sitting in his office. He's about to have the toughest conversation of maybe the toughest conversation of his life. His chest burned. It was this dull, hot coal pressed against his ribs, the familiar calling card of his old friend anxiety that had become his constant companion. He looked down at his phone as he waited, scrolling through photos that his wife posted of the soccer game that he missed last night, picture of his son scoring a goal while Jake was on yet another crisis call. As he scrolled through the pictures, he saw a few of himself and noticed that he'd put on some weight over the past few years, and he felt a lot more tired than he was a few years ago. And he looked at the last sent text that said, "We need to talk in the morning. Meet me at 7 a.m. in my office." Let's back up. For the past 3 years, Jake has been pursuing this vision for his business. He wanted to carry on the legacy that his dad started, and he wanted to build a custom home building business that functioned with precision and quality and provided a great experience for his clients and a great experience for his team. He had been planning to hire somebody to take over operations so that he could finally stop being the lead firefighter and really step into the CEO role. But every time he moved toward that goal, he hit this invisible wall. On one side was Charlie A. Oswalt. Charlie was Jake's father's right-hand man for 20 or 30 years, the field legend who had practically raised Jake on job sites. And whenever Jake brought up hiring this new operations guy, Charlie would give him that smile and say, "Yeah, you're going to do that. You'll hire that operations guy, Jake. We'll get there. You just need a little more time to get things dialed in first. Things are going to calm down in a month or two. Let's just get through this next project, and then we'll talk about it." On the other side was Sarah, the office manager. Sarah had been there since the beginning, since Jake's dad owned the business, and she had become a constant source of friction. Every time Jake walked toward her desk to ask her to do something, to ask for something she was being paid to do, or to suggest a change, he found himself bracing. He had to coach himself to put on a smile, had to remind himself not to get angry before he even opened his mouth because he knew what was coming. See, Sarah wouldn't scream, she wouldn't yell, she would just sigh and ask questions that felt like sandpaper, like, "Jake, are you sure we can afford to do that? Your dad always said we're just one bad month away from the doors closing." Or she would say things like, "I don't know if we're going to have any work in 6 months. A few years ago, we were booked out for 2 years. Are you sure you're out there selling like your dad used to? I see you spending a lot of time on your laptop." And Jake had even heard some secondhand rumors that Sarah had made some comments to other people on the team about things like the car that his wife drove and the vacations that they took. And she had become a little bit of a drama queen, and she was pretty good at finger pointing. Sarah was pretty adept at blaming people. Just last month, Jake got a call from his framing sub on a custom home they were building, and there was a problem with the windows. The guy said, "Hey, Jake, we got a big problem with these windows, man. Some were too small, some windows were missing." So Jake spent half a day digging through the mess, looking at plans, looking at the window order quotes, and he figured out that the windows had been ordered based on an old set of plans, not the final construction set. So guess who ordered the windows? Sarah. Jake braced himself, got himself in the right headspace, confronted Sarah about it, and she said, "Well, Jake, I wouldn't have used those plans if you hadn't left so many versions lying around. You know, your dad used to just give me what I needed, and all these folders and systems that you're trying to use are just confusing. I did what I thought was best. It's not my fault." Bottom line, that $50,000 window package was ordered wrong. It was going to take 8 weeks to get the new windows in, and Jake was going to have to eat the cost of those changes. Now, Jake was going to have to call the homeowner to explain why they saw extra windows laying around and explain to them why the project was delayed. Kick in the groin. And then another situation. There was the beach vacation that Jake and his family tried to take. Jake and his wife, Emily, took their 2 kids to the beach. One morning, Jake was in the condo. The kids had everything on. They were sunscreened up. His wife was holding the cooler. They're getting ready to head for the door. And they were 5 minutes away from the sand. And Jake's phone rang, and it was Charlie. Jake saw the name, and he felt his stomach drop and this tightness in his chest, and his wife Emily saw it too. She didn't yell. She just took a deep breath, kind of shook her head like, "Here we go again," and made a motion like they're going to head to the door. So she quietly took the kids out, headed to the beach. Jake answered the phone. "Jake, the tile installer is here at this house, and this guy is completely lost," Charlie said. "He's asking about grout colors and patterns and missing Schluter trim. I know you said it's in the file. I know it's in there, but are you 100% sure that's the right info? I don't know if it's right, man. I'd hate for you to come home to a $20,000 mistake." So Jake thought, do I just trust the information we have? Do I listen to Charlie? So he decided he needed to be safe. So he spent the next 2 hours in the condo calling the homeowner for information, explaining why he was asking for this information a second time because they'd already given it to him, then calling the supplier and the installer, playing phone tag to get all of these details ironed out. Meanwhile, while the tile installer is standing there with the meter running, and all the while his family was on the beach. So this day, Jake felt a mix of being pissed off and something bordering on hopeless. He asked questions like, why are things always so chaotic? Why can't we figure this shit out? Why does it have to be so hard? This stuff, we're not building violins. We're not trying to put people on the moon here. Why is it so difficult? And yesterday, the answer finally arrived. Jake was digging through a stack of invoices, and he found this T&M ticket from the framing sub for about $5,000. And as he dug into it, Jake noticed a couple of things. One, it was an extra. This T&M ticket was for the crane rental, which was already included in the fixed price subcontract agreement that Jake had sent out. And there were 6 hours of unnecessary overtime that apparently Charlie had authorized. So as Jake looked at the authorized by section, he saw Charlie's signature, but it was scrawled in a way he'd never really noticed before. He could only make out the first couple of letters of Charlie. He could make out his middle initial and the first couple of letters of his last name. Charlie A. Oswald, Chaos. And it was like a light bulb went off. It spelled chaos. It just jumped off the page at him. Chaos. Charlie was chaos. And suddenly everything made sense. Charlie wasn't just old school. He was the system of resistance. He kept everything in the gray areas where only he knew the answers. He kept Jake stuck in the urgent, the immediate, and firefighting mode because as long as Jake was chasing grout colors and window orders, he really couldn't change the business. And that's where Charlie was comfortable. He had the business right where he liked it. Charlie's advice was, you're going to do this. You're going to hire that operations guy, but let's just wait until we get things dialed in. And Jake realized Charlie had been saying that for a couple of years. Let's just wait a few more months, wait until we get this project closed out. He had always been telling him, we're going to do this, but let's just wait. So we're back at the office. The office door creaked open at 7 a.m. Charlie walked in smelling of backwoods cigars that he liked to smoke. Morning, Jake. Charlie said, I heard you had some questions about that framing T&M ticket. Look, I had to authorize that. And Jake interrupted him and said, save the story, Charlie. His voice was quiet. He was working to keep it calm, but his chest was pounding. And he said, look, man, I'm not my father, and this isn't his company anymore. Charlie tried to interrupt, said, now, wait a minute. Jake put his hand up and stopped him and said, I realize what you've been doing. You have kept me in the urgent mode and firefighting, so I can't change the company. You want to keep things where you're comfortable with them. You keep the team in fear so they wouldn't support the systems. You're done, Charlie. I need you to turn in your keys and your credit cards. You are fired. After the door closed, Charlie stormed out and slammed the door. Jake sat at his desk in silence. His heart was still pounding, but he felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. And he realized a few things. He realized that having time was a decision. The lack of time wasn't going to fix itself. He realized that he had to start before he felt ready. It occurred to him that confidence comes from taking action, not the other way around. And then he realized that he'd been trying to build a business around the people he had instead of designing a business to produce the vision he wanted. He realized one of the biggest problems he had was he had this vision for a business and he's trying to get the people he had together to achieve that vision, and it was never going to happen. He needed to design a business to produce the vision that he wanted. So he had plenty of stuff to do, but it was time to take action. So he blocked out that afternoon. And the first thing he did was he spent a few hours articulating his vision for the business. And he asked questions like, what do I want this business to look like in a few years? What kind of projects do we want to focus on? What are the projects we're best at? What are the projects that are most profitable for us? What kind of clients do we want to work with? What kind of experience do we want the company to produce? What do we want people to say about our company? How do we want our team members to feel about working here? And he got really clear on the vision, the destination. In essence, he went a couple of years into the future, planted a flag in the ground and said, this is where I want to be in the future. And then once he had that vision over the next few weeks, he began to spend time creating a design for his business. He created a blueprint for the business. He mapped out what the company would look like. How would accountability for different parts of the business, like sales and pre-construction and estimating and operations and finance, how would those things be divided up so it's not all on him? He mapped out clearly defined roles and clearly defined responsibilities for what a pre-construction manager would do, what a project manager would do, what a job site lead would be accountable for. And then he got really clear on what results each role would need to deliver. And he designed this business in a way that it would deliver the results, help him deliver the vision he was looking for. After that, he began to work on developing a playbook with his team that had a well-designed, documented process for how they would run their projects, from pre-construction, working backwards into the sales process, even going back into the marketing process. He did it in a way that his team would be bought into it. He included them in that process. So it wouldn't just be his process that he's trying to cram down their throat. It would be a process that they're bought into. It would be their process. He wanted everybody to be singing from the same sheet of music, so to speak, and to have a manual that his team could refer to. He wanted to be able to answer questions one last time and be able to say, go check the playbook whenever there's a question. And throughout this process, he started to think more like a CEO and less like a builder. He was working on his business and not just in it. He started to become more of if his business was a machine, he became more like the designer and the operator of this machine instead of just being a cog in the machine. Fast forward 3 months after he fired Charlie, on a Tuesday afternoon, Jake pulled into his driveway, shut off his truck, and smiled. Things were different now. His office was different. He had hired that operations manager, so he'd set them up for success. So Jake's phone wasn't ringing nearly as much. His operations manager was handling things in the field. Sarah, who was no longer under Charlie's chaotic influence, was actually playing ball. She was following the playbook. She was much more positive, and she was on board with what was going on. She wasn't perfect, but she was a lot different than she was before. So Jake climbed out of his truck, and he didn't feel that poke, that tightness in his chest. He walked into his house at 3 p.m., turned his phone off, and started packing up his kids' soccer gear. And he wasn't just going to soccer practice, he was the coach now. And as he headed out the door, he was talking to his son about this new play that he wanted to try out with the team. It was a design of his own making. So a lot of us, a lot of you, maybe you have chaos in your life. Maybe it's not a 30-year-old veteran of the trade. Maybe it's not even a person. Maybe yours is a habit or a voice in your own head. But wherever you're at today, if you're sitting in your truck, if you're driving, if you're at the gym, if you're in your office, wherever you're at, I want you to look at yourself and be honest about a few things. Answer a few questions, three specific questions I want you to think about. Number one, what's the biggest gray area in your business right now? What is the number one gray area in your business right now? This is the place where things are murky, where details are falling through the cracks, where there's finger pointing, there are no clear rules, there's no accountability, there's no documented process to follow. This is where chaos lives. Chaos feeds on the gray areas. And it's probably where chaos is eating up your profits as well. So question number one, what's the number one gray area in your business that's causing you the most problems? It could be pre-construction. It could be the handoff from the office to the field. It could be who is accountable for making selections. It might be your role as the owner. It might be completely unclear. Maybe you have somebody on your team who has no idea what they're supposed to be doing. But think about what's the number one gray area in your business. Question number two, is your business designed around the people you have, or is it designed around the vision that you want to achieve? They're two fundamentally different approaches to designing a business. One is to look at the people that you have around you and say, I'm just going to have to do the best I can with what I've got. And you've got Charlies and Sarahs, and you have these maybe unicorn employees, and you're trying to wrap a business model around those people. That's one approach. The other approach is to Do what Jake did. Get clear on the vision, where you want to go, and then design a business that will achieve that vision. So, second question, is your business designed around the people you have, or is it designed around the vision that you want to achieve? And then third, how long have you been telling yourself you're going to fix this when you have time? How long have you been saying, I'm going to fix this? Well, or maybe you're saying future me is going to fix this. Future me is going to have more time, be better equipped to fix this. Maybe you need to be like Jake, who finally realized that having time was just a decision that he had to make. It wasn't going to fix itself. Maybe you need to realize that you need to start before you feel ready. Maybe you need to realize that confidence comes from taking action, not the other way around. If you're waiting to feel ready, if you're waiting for that confidence before you take action, you may be waiting a long time. So confidence comes from taking action, not the other way around. Jake is a fictional character. His story isn't real, but it is pulled from my conversations with hundreds of construction business owners over the past 10 years. While his specific story isn't real, if you want to hear from some builders and remodelers and other construction business owners who have done the things that Jake did to change their businesses, if you want to hear from guys and gals who made the decision to eliminate the chaos in their business, made the decision to design a business that would make their vision possible, then we have a brand new batch of case studies on our website. You can go to the results page on our website and go read and listen to their case studies of people like Daniel, Ryan, Darren, and John, who have changed their businesses for good. If you want to go listen to their stories, go to the results tab on the website or go to constructionleadingedge.com/results. If you're ready to eliminate the chaos in your construction business, and if you're ready to get clear on your vision, to design your business, to achieve that vision and create the systems and processes to get there, we can help. The first step would be to go schedule a call with me. It's a business evaluation call. There's no pressure. It's not a sales call. We're just going to dig into your business, see what's going on, and decide if we can help. So if you are ready to take that step, the link is in the show notes to schedule a business evaluation call, or you can just go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY. We've got a couple of other resources in the show notes or the description for you. Check those out. The links will be in there. My challenge for you is to take action, answer those questions. And if you're not happy with your answers, do something. Take action. And if you get some value out of this podcast, do me a favor. If it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a review and a rating. Give us a 5-star review rating. If you're on YouTube, if you're watching or listening on YouTube, subscribe to it and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and it helps to spread the word as well. I'm Todd Dawalt from constructionleadingedge.com, and I'll see you next time.